This guy really was uncomfortable to play with. He was loud, he interrupted people while talking, all the good stuff. But he showed much interest in the campaign, which he described as well written, creative, and fun. Now, I worked a lot for my campaign. I put a lot of effort into it. I like touching darker themes. I always beforehand make sure my players are comfortable with the topics I am involving. We even made consent lists, and I won't touch anything that's troubling for my players. So after last session, this guy asked me where I get my ideas for the campaign from, and when I told him I wrote everything myself, including the religion, storylines, plot points, and the different factions, he became very quiet. Then he said, "I don't know, I just didn't expect this. My experience tells me women like to run lighter stuff." When I told him that was all my ideas, he went quiet again. Later, I received a private message where he told me that he was stunned that I, as a woman, would touch such dark topics since I, and I quote, "look so sweet with my brunette curls and small height," and that if I had stolen the campaign its ideas from somewhere, I should tell the group. Everyone would understand. I again told him it was from my brain, and I find it kind of rude for him to question my creativity because I'm a female. He then got defensive and said that he finds the attempt of me DMing endearing, but it wasn't that good anyway, and I should get off my high horse. He then again said that I should stick to easier, more lighthearted stuff. I kicked him out. And honestly, I'm still flabbergasted by it. I don't blame you. This guy really did try to pull the classic nice guy, "you weren't that hot anyway" thing, and yeah, it doesn't work in romance, and it doesn't work in Dungeons & Dragons either. Got bored after today's D&D session and wanted to jump on the TV with my party, but then I remembered that Netflix doesn't have half the stuff we like. Group was pretty bummed about it, honestly. Almost ruined the Hangout. Luckily, I had Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN is the sponsor of today's video. They are the best VPN deal on the market with affordable online protection for just a couple of bucks per month, with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Using this, you can get rid of that pesky region lock and unlock content from all across the world. Want to watch Friends on Netflix? Well, unfortunately, in America, that's not possible. But with the power of Atlas VPN, it's as simple as flicking a switch and boom, there you go. On top of that, Atlas VPN is an investment in your own privacy and security. If you're looking for something on Google, with Atlas VPN, you can search the web with real and organic search results and do it without tracking your activity. Atlas also serves as a really good way to block those ads and malware. Best for me, it works across unlimited devices. I hate having multiple subscriptions for multiple different devices. With Atlas VPN, it protects all your devices with a single $1.70 subscription. You guys can get into your 2023 right with some good old privacy and security by downloading Atlas VPN in the link in the description. Thank you so much to Atlas VPN for sponsoring today's video. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. And without further ado, I'm going to turn back into an animated rat so we can get back to the video. I lived with this guy for a little over 2 years. Life was fine and dandy for a bit, but over time he began to show more and more just how uncaring and self-centered he really was. This came to a head when he joined 2 separate 5th edition campaigns that I run. One, an attempted homebrew in my very first game DMing, and the second, the module Rime of the Frost Maiden. Bear in mind, this guy was just shy above 30. In the first campaign, he made it clear he wanted to play a succubus. Not tiefling with high charisma like I tried to compromise with, but a straight succubus. I tried to explain all the time I prepped and all the time I spent on this world, and I didn't want anything gratuitous going on, but he would not back down, and the argument was going on for much longer than it really should have. I regrettably gave in and found an OP homebrew incubus, which I helped him build. The following day, I had second thoughts and recommended we do a race change to do something more balanced and fitting, to which he loudly and aggressively asked, "Why?" I soon dropped it and let him keep his incubus, with the promise of keeping the hinky-pinky stuff out of the campaign, hoping it would work itself out. I still kick myself for letting that happen. For my homebrew, I had a large amount of mundane magical items on printed cards to hand out to the players when they found them. I was not expecting my campaign to be a masterpiece, so I wanted everyone to have some creative fun for problem solving. My roommate proceeded to hog nearly every item the party came across, claiming, "But I can use it. as though it were catered specifically to him. Out of his nearly 1-inch stack of cards he accumulated, he used maybe 1 or 2 items total throughout the campaign, and it always brought the rest of the table down. A mutual friend of ours who was playing left a couple sessions later, confiding in me that he couldn't deal with such insatiable greed. On a similar vein, he was never satisfied with anything he was rewarded with. In the second campaign, I planned to have personalized items for every player character after reaching certain milestones. For his rogue, I rewarded him with a dagger of venom and a laser pistol. This didn't stop him from constantly asking where he was going to get his next weapon, and complained he wasn't doing nearly as much damage compared to everyone else in combat. Note that his rogue has nearly maxed out strength and dexterity from some lucky rolls on character creation. He sulked all the time. Whenever someone got a killing blow in combat, we would always hear, I was going to do that, and shut down for the rest of the session. If I corrected him that he couldn't do anything because of mechanics or roleplay reasons, he would go quiet and silently whine, "That's stupid," and shut down again. On top of this, he never studied anything about his race/class between sessions. I was practically playing his character for him during combat, with all the info I had to constantly repeat for him, which he should have known from the beginning. Even after finding some quick and easy to read references which I pinned to our Discord for him to gloss over, it was all in vain. He was constantly obnoxious during in-character and out-character moments. He always spoke to my NPCs with a condescending tone, like the one you give to a small child when prompting them with their please and thank yous, which was always degrading. For his character's personality, I compare it to back when Deadpool was at his peak popularity in the 2010s and everyone cosplayed as him, but missed the point on why he was funny and just came across as rude, annoying, and irrelevant. This also carried on whenever idle chit-chat was happening pre-game or during breaks. He felt the need to always interject between every pause with the same bland, predictable jokes that barely reference anything that was just mentioned. He simply wouldn't let any conversation breathe for a moment. He went through a phase of forcing a one-man bit of the Hot Fuzz punchline. All for the greater good. The greater good. What's the punchline? I don't get it. Am I just stupid? Anyway, he did that nonstop every week despite Discord being silent each time. The biggest offender which lost all my respect for him was when one of the player characters, a very close friend of mine, had gone through a nasty breakup. Rather than leave it alone or show some sympathy, my roommate hounded him with every tasteless joke about it during the session, prompting my friend to unfriend and ghost him afterwards. My roommate whined to me about it, seemingly bewildered on why he would do that. So I attempted to have them make amends in a separate call so we could keep the game going, but when my friend called him out on his behavior, my roommate once again sulked and whined quietly, "But I didn't," while his girlfriend claimed we were emotionally bullying him. It wasn't much later that I disbanded the group, cut contact with my now ex-roommate, and re-invited a few players while recruiting a few others to start Rime of the Frost Maiden from scratch. It's been a huge relief ever since. Everyone is cooperative, shares the spotlight with one another, and come up with brilliantly insane ideas. It's easily the most fun I've had DMing in a long time since I started. It's true, there are a number of behaviors I should have stopped earlier or straight up kicked him if he wasn't going to cooperate. While I still kick myself every now and then, I at least take those couple of years as a hard lesson on what to tolerate and when to be firm on my own decisions. It's always important to learn from your mistakes. I certainly don't think the OP of the story is some terrible person. Sometimes we just don't know how to handle these situations. It's important to learn from them, and that is exactly what we see here. Now, of course, this guy is not the best player to have. Not the worst thing we've seen, but certainly up there. First and foremost, forcing the incubus is just a red flag right away. If you can't handle a simple thing like that before the campaign even starts, I am worried about how you're going to act while we are running the actual game. Not to say you can't push back with your DM on some things, but a hard no is a hard no. And in this case, the hard no is perfectly reasonable. I assume the guy did keep his promise about keeping the hinky-pinky stuff out of the campaign, which that's good at least. However, instead, this was replaced by overwhelming greed and terrible humor. Look, humor is subjective, but there's a reason why almost every comedian out there will tell you the most important skill is to read the room. And when you see someone who can't read the room, there is nothing more, well, for lack of a better word, cringy than that. Throwaway, since I'm almost certain my former game master is on Reddit, and I don't want to risk using my username. I'm also quite new to Reddit, so if formatting is off, you have my sincerest apologies. I'm a GM with 9+ years of experience. I've introduced tons of new players to D&D, but today's story concerns a player who joined my 5th edition homebrew campaign who we'll call Jack. Months into my campaign, and Jack decides he wants to run his own homebrew campaign. I am, of course, filled with Game Master pride that my player is taking up the mantle, and additionally happy that I can take a break from my forever DMing curse. Me and some other players from my campaign roll up characters for his game, and we begin. Things start fine. Jack asks me for GM tips here and there, and for formatting help and balancing questions, but eventually I start seeing some concerning habits in his GMing style. Very specifically, he liked to make decisions for the player characters. One player came to me after a session in tears because, well, Jack kept editing their descriptions of their character actions. Here's an example from the campaign. The player described their player character as being full of hope for the upcoming adventure. Jack stops them and says, "No, you feel a rush of fear in the air. Something is very wrong. It all feels desolate in your heart. There is no hope in your PC's mind." This happened a couple of times. I approached Jack about it and hoped things would sort themselves out if I explained some basic Game Master etiquette lessons. The main thing I tried to tell Jack is that D&D isn't a book, it's a sandbox you create that the players explore. You can dictate the world, the winds, and the waves, but you can never dictate the players' choices. I caught Jack trying to control characters many other times, including my own. He would constantly have a self-insert NPC. The NPC even had a name that was similar to his. Since we're calling Jack Jack, we'll call the NPC Jackson. He had this NPC flirt with my aromantic asexual character. He forcefully split up the party so my character would be alone with Jackson and kept referring to it as a date night heist. I had to sternly inform Jack that as an arrow ace myself, it was in poor taste and that my character would not be entering into this relationship. He admitted he wanted Jackson and my character to be an item, but said he would not force it. Overall, the main problem Jack seemed to keep bumping into was that he wanted to have control over his story. Whenever we did something that didn't align with his perfect world, he would throw a small fit over it and stop his sessions early so he could think of how to fix the plot. We truly all thought it was just growing pains from going from a writer to a dungeon master, so for the next few months, we just continued on and hoped for Jack to get better? To cut a long series of baffling sessions short, with such highlights as a natural 20 not hitting an enemy's AC somehow, the campaign split up. I won't get into the details, but Jack made a series of out-of-game decisions and actions that caused a severe rift in the friend group. I had the largest falling out with him out of everyone, so I left his campaign and kicked him out of mine. I have a feeling, just a theory, just a hunch, a hypothesis, if you will, that he totally asked somebody out and got rejected. But of course, that's just a theory. Okay! Hey, don't you dare! But now, here we are, 2 years after that campaign unceremoniously ended, and I got a message from a former player in Jack's campaign. Jack had written fanfiction about all the player characters. Specifically, he marketed it to his friends, and he shared it as the true story of all of our player characters. Everyone else's character only had one fanfiction about them, but mine had 4. One of them was the true story of my character, but the rest were, you guessed it, about my character being in a romantic relationship with Jackson, the self-insert NPC. Most of them were less than safe for work as well. Oh god. But it gets worse. Not only that, but he was running a campaign in my homebrew world after our friend group split. Some friends had gotten together with him when they left my campaign and let Jack run an alternate universe version of my campaign, but with my current player characters replaced with the ones who left the original game. My campaign is live streamed, so he would watch my streams and copy my plot points and NPCs one for one. They did this for years without consulting me or asking me at all. It was all behind my back. This went on until Jack had another falling out with this party and the cat got out of the bag. Now here I am. This saga is still ongoing. I came here right after learning about the 4th fanfiction that he quite literally wrote today. I thought this was a ridiculous enough story for the subreddit. I'm sitting here entirely baffled and unsure what to do other than to share this story and hope people out there find everything as baffling and horrifying and amusing as I find it. TLDR, GM who wanted to control everyone's characters in his game had his campaign abandoned. He decided instead of letting it go, he would write fanfiction of all the players' characters so he could finally control them like he always wanted to. The ending almost sounds wholesome if you take out all the creepy stuff. Speaking of taking out the creepy stuff, I think there's actually something we can learn if we just pay attention to the bit where the GM doesn't really know how to handle the player's own choices. I don't think every game has to be a sandbox, but even in linear campaigns, it's important to pay attention to what the players are doing and thinking, because a lot of the appeal of these games is to watch the players make their own decisions. And as a GM, I often get attached to the plot that I have in mind, the vision I have for the campaign, and when the players do something unexpected, I don't embrace it like I should, and there are many times where I kind of regret it. Something unexpected will happen at the table, I move the campaign away from the unexpected, and I look back on it and kind of regret that, because I realize after I've already taken action that spontaneous what-if scenario would have been really, really cool. Maybe not better, but at the very least it would have been good. Sometimes embracing spontaneity and embracing what the players do will result in a better game. I empathize with new dungeon masters who may not know how to do that, but I think this GM actually shows us how to. Ending a session a little bit early so you can figure out what to do in the future of the campaign is not a crime by any means. As long as the other players are okay with it, that's great. I will always choose to have a shorter session and a better campaign. I actually look forward to whatever the next part of the story is, because good lord, I do love a good old nice guy story, and that's definitely what we're looking at here. Good luck, OP. This happened many moons ago in my 20s when I joined a D&D group after having spent many years playing Swedish and British RPGs. I created a sorcerer who came from a kind of Rome-like country far away where life was cheap and empathy was an alien concept. He wasn't a bad or cruel man, just someone who was heavily colored by the circumstances of his environment, a sort of ends justify the means kind of character that did what he did in order to survive in a harsh world. He had recently arrived on the Sword Coast after being exiled for throwing in with the losing side in a recent coup attempt. Our GM read my character background and said this character was neutral evil. I didn't know what this meant, and it seemed an awfully simplistic approach to describe a morally gray character, so I protested. My character wasn't meant to be evil. The GM insisted that since I was new and completely unfamiliar with D&D, that's how the alignment system worked. He told me to just accept that's how the game worked. I reluctantly agreed to it. The first few games went fine. I quickly began to develop my character, along the lines of learning what true friendship means, how to be part of a team and not just look out for myself, and so on. I didn't do any of the things I have since learned are associated with evil characters. I obeyed the law, never laid a finger on a friendly NPC, and helped my party wherever I could, even if it meant risking my life. The things I did do was like taking things from the homes of dead NPCs, arguing that we should work with the Thieves Guild against our common enemy instead of fighting them, or suggesting we carefully study the magical necromantic book instead of just burning it so we could figure out if our enemy have any weaknesses. If the group disagreed, which they usually did, I abided by their decision. Then one session, me and the paladin were alone together on our way to buy supplies from a nearby village. He suddenly declared that he was attacking me. I draw my sword and attack Jimmy. What? Why? Because your character is evil and I am a paladin. I'm not evil. I did a detect evil spell when you were in the bathroom. The GM chimes in. Oh yeah, we did that. I didn't know he would do this. Sorry. Look, that's just a stupid rules thing. It doesn't mean my character is a villain. It does to my character. I have to fight evil. GM responds, please, dude, don't do this. No, I have to. It's what my character would do. Paladin, you're being an asshole. After about 5 minutes of arguing, the GM allowed us to do PvP combat, but suggested that no one kill anyone else. I fought the Paladin as best as I could, but I was no match for his combat abilities, and I soon found myself downed. Then he killed me. Me and the Paladin then spent hours arguing. Eventually, the GM and the other players decided that the Paladin was the asshole, and that we should GM Ex Machina post-retcon the whole thing, so that his character died as punishment for being a game-ruining jerk. And all was well. Until my next RPG horror story. Alright, I decided to add a short FAQ. Is Anders really an asshole? Yes, he is. An asshole and a troll, but he is our asshole troll, and we will... well, I'll tolerate him a lot. One time when we were out drinking, he annoyed some people so much they beat him up. Me and the GM bravely defended him by keeping our safe distance and calling the police. Detect evil doesn't work like that. At the time, we thought it meant all evil people and creatures just glowed red. Yeah, it's stupid, I know. But I thought D&D was a really dumb and rules backward system, so I never questioned it working like that. What edition were you playing? It was Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. Did it really happen like that? Yes, the attack happened like that, and it took everyone by surprise. The paladin had been playing the move in secret for some time because he suspected that my character was up to no good. The detecting evil thing was just to confirm his suspicions. Your character was evil. I mean, not in my mind. He was intended to be much more of a Varys type than a Ramsay Bolton type. If Dungeons & Dragons considers that to be evil, that would showcase how shallow the alignment system is, though I might have unintentionally played it up a bit jokingly by doing impressions of villainous characters like Saruman, Alan Rickman, or Gollum while playing. Why didn't your GM stop it? I think he was just as shocked and confused as the rest of us. Why didn't you kick Paladin from the group? Because that would have felt mean, and we didn't think it was bad enough to warrant such an extreme response. Do you still play together? No, but yeah, that's a story for another time. I think I've said this a couple times, but I think of alignment kind of like how I think of personality tests or star signs. They can be fun, but don't put too much stock into them. I generally run characters with good campaigns, and if I find a character that might be a problem for that, I talk to the player about it. The GM's draconian approach of, you're just evil now without any discussion just seems very short-sighted. At first, I thought the GM would be the problem in this story, but no, it was the Paladin. The Paladin coming out of nowhere with a straight-up murder attempt on this character. If the GM really wanted this to stop, the GM has the power to stop it and say no. Obviously, they were definitely caught off guard, and I sympathize with that, but I won't lie, I was kind of annoyed when I saw the GM allowing the PvP and then retconning it afterwards. I mean, I prefer doing that than just letting the Paladin kill off this character, but if you were gonna retcon, just don't let the combat happen in the first place. At least the Paladin's overly simplistic view on Paladinship didn't result in them being immediately booted from the campaign. I mean, it looks like they were eventually booted from the campaign anyway, but I guess that's a story for another time. You know something's up with the story when the first damn header is this. Alright, it's time to take the plunge. I get invited to a Shadowrun game by a friend. It's over voice, never met anyone here except my friend who knows the game master. We all start making characters. I'm going for a hacker who loves drones but has almost zero direct combat skills. My friend is making a mage detective who uses scrying to solve crimes. Our third is a grizzled ex-military sniper. And then someone wants to play a ghoul. In Shadowrun, ghouls are people who are infected with a contagious disease that turns them into rage zombie cannibals. For the vast majority of Shadowrun, ghouls are the go-to feel free to kill 'em enemies, like typical zombies. Well, this player wants to use some special rules in the supplement to play a ghoul that's sterile, as in can't transmit the virus. My friend and I immediately bring up the red flags, that this is something the average citizen of Shadowrun would be perturbed by, and our characters might be uncomfortable traveling or working with a cannibal. The GM says, "Oh no, it's okay, nobody's prejudiced against ghouls." We both take a second and go, "What?" The GM explains that the sterile ghouls are integrated into society with no stigma because there are companies out there that produce cloned human meat that is ethically sourced, and the ghouls can live off of it. The GM told us to stop trying to kill someone else's fun. The character concept was interesting, so he allowed it. We just shrugged it off and said okay, so we could start playing. The very first mission, we were given orders to clear out a ghoul hive, where our sterile ghoul friend had zero qualms about murdering his fellow ghouls, and then vividly described his characters eating the leftover bodies. We weren't allowed to speak up in character that this was, you know, gross. As it turns out, the GM and the player were really big into... You know what? I'm not gonna look up what that is. I don't know what it is, but I don't think I want to know. I'm gonna move on. You can look it up, though. Anyway, they were in cahoots and just wanted to do cannibalism all game. When my friend confronted the GM removed him and me from the group between sessions. Just because you can't afford a van. Another time, another friend invited me to a Shadowrun game. It's him, his two roommates, me, and another guy. The friend's roommate is GMing. His other roommate is playing too. We go through character creation, during which time I make an adept, a person who uses magic to enhance their personal abilities, like a chi user or anime fighter. They can't use a lot of cyberware, so character creation is all about stats more than equipment. In most versions of Shadowrun, you have to choose what priority you give your stats, skills, magic, money, etc. My friend's roommate is trying to make a character who's just a gun guy. All he does is shoot guns. He wants to be the best at shooting guns. His character concept is that he likes guns. He puts max priority on his stats and skills so he can shoot those guns better, and he dumps his money into guns and cyberware to make him better. Guess what? At the guns. Then he asks, hey, can I have a van? The GM asks if he has money for a van. He says no, because he had to get that super special cyberware to shoot his gun good. He pouted and said that it would be cool if he got to be the group's driver, and all of us said that we could chip in our money to have a group van, but nah, he wanted a van so that he could be the one with the van. Character creation wraps up and we all go our separate ways. At the start of the next session, we announced that the roommate had a van, without changing his character sheet or money at all. We all wondered how he managed this until my friend sent a private message. Apparently the GM and the roommate were sort of on again, off again with each other, and after disappearing into their room after our character creation, the roommate later emerged and bragged that he got a van. We quickly put 2 and 2 to... Halos out there, come on, don't tell me you fold that easy! Your mic is on. Another mishap in session 0, me and a buddy are in a voice chat with someone from a proposed Shadowrun game. We're just making characters, so it's quiet, a lot of math and occasional comments. Then we start hearing this noise, like routine grunting and slaps, skin on skin. We notice that one of the other participants' icons is flashing. We don't think much of it until the groaning turns... My friend clears his throat and says someone's mic is on. To save someone some embarrassment, the dude says out loud, "No it isn't," and then just continues. My friend goes, "It absolutely is," and the guy picks up his headset and says over it, "Hey, can anyone hear me?" We're all adults, so we go, "Yeah, we can hear you. I think you should set yourself to push to talk." The guy then says, nah, I was just checking, and the headset comes off again. And then the noise resumes. Oh my god. Oh my god. Come on. My friend is a little baffled and says, "Hey dude, your mic is broadcasting. We can hear you." He calls him by his name this time. And again, the dude says, "I'm not on," and then he continues his business until we assume he reaches the finish line, and then we hear him get up and leave. Shadowrun, man. Now, I will say, I don't think this is necessarily Shadowrun's fault. If you guys are interested in Shadowrun, I encourage you to try it out, but yes, no doubt these are some absolutely ridiculous stories. I didn't know where the van one was going, but when they revealed where it was going, I was like, damn. That is, well, it was certainly something. The first story about the guru thing, I believe it was called. Look, if you want to run that kind of game, that's perfectly fine. You just need to find players who want to run it with you, which the GM and the other player did not do in any way. They weren't advertising properly. They weren't looking for the right players. They just opened up their very highly, let's say, specific game open for everyone, and that is a recipe for disaster. The final guy? I mean, that guy's just an agent of chaos. There's no possible way he doesn't know what's going on. He must be some kind of troll. Like, I was gonna call this a dark side Phil moment, but even DSP had some level of shame after that whole, debacle. In any case, it showcases one of the dangers of online tabletop role-playing and online activity in general. People are really comfortable being really creepy and weird and other strange things on the internet, and sometimes you're gonna get somebody who makes weird fleshy slapping noises and doesn't seem to care that it makes everybody want to rip their ears off their head. Alright, let's come back down to base and get to the outro. If you guys enjoyed this undoubtedly strange episode of RPG Horror Stories, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Tabletop Tavern Tips series, where we covered advice for both GMs and players, old and new. And while you're there in the cards, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content whereas it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. You are unmuted to let me know you made it to the end of the video. And that's like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.